everybody? Welcome back to Classic City Locks. After a long hiatus, we have a lot going on. We are excited to give you a preview right before Conference Championship Saturday. And there has been so much that's gone on. We cannot do a huge recap, but holy cow, what a year to have the first 12 team playoff. I mean, I was thinking about this right before we started, Grant. We talked about how a while back, oh, the new 12 team, nobody's going to be upset that we're about to get into it. There are going to be some very upset fans that they did not get the 12 slot. So we're going to kick this episode off with a little playoff chatter. Let's talk about who's on the bubble because we have a pretty good feeling for who's in. Like, I feel like we're pretty sure that the Big Ten folks are in. We think that even Georgia, if they lose, which they're not going to, that they would probably be in with 3 losses. So let's talk about the interesting who gets that last slot. Okay. Grant, why don't you kick us off? Who do you think's on the bubble here?
So we'll start with ranked 12, Miami. They got a not the strongest of schedules. Their resume, they've blown out a lot of teams. They've also played a lot of not very great teams close.
Yeah,
They're pretty much one of the more controversial teams, depending on who you ask. Either they're an auto include, or they shouldn't have been in there in the first place. I think they're probably in the rightful spot on the bubble. Perhaps there's a chaos scenario and the commissioner of the CFP goes back on his word, and Miami makes it in somehow. But uh, I think they're probably where they should be on the bubble and not quite in.
I agree with that, and I think the reason they're really in the conversation, obviously they're 10-2. That's an impressive feat. But when you look at Miami early on in the season, they were massacring teams. I mean, they started out the season just destroying Florida, and I feel like if there's a team we've seen develop over the season, Florida's one of them. I mean, they've really turned a corner. Billy Napier, he saved his job. Um, but they started off really strong, just beating. I mean, they were dropping 56 points on poor Florida A&M. But then once we saw them get into conference play, like it felt like they were on the verge of losing every other week. So I think as the season developed, we realized that they are not invincible at all. And they should be on the bubble after 2. I mean, I think that Georgia Tech and Syracuse are good, um, solid teams. The ACC actually had a decent amount of mid-tier teams, but still, they're unranked losses. So, I think that's why they're there. Up next on the bubble, it's a 3-way mixture of SEC teams. We have Bama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. I'll start. I think that Ole Miss is out of this because I think that they have the worst losses. And I think I have gone back and forth on Bama and South Carolina so much because if there is another team that has turned the corner, it's South Carolina. They have, if there is a team in the SEC that you don't want to play right now, it's them. Something clicked. They've won 6 or 7 weeks in a row. And I mean, they look like a whole different team. So I think that what this is going to come down to is does the committee value the head to head between a South Carolina Bama and it's a 2 point Bama win, or do they care more about recency bias? And I think that they're going to stick with the head to head. I think they're going to take the safe route, and I think it's going to piss people off, but I think they're going to take Bama.
I also agree with that prediction. They're definitely going to stick with Bama, especially because they already have them in the playoff already.
Yes.
Um, there's heritage there, even though it doesn't make sense to have heritage with Nick Saban gone.
Yeah.
Uh, they I mean, Bama has a pretty good resume, obviously. They've beaten a lot of out of conference. They've beaten the crap out of out of conference teams. Uh, if you really want to get into the brass tacks of it, South Carolina in the recent weeks, as you mentioned, they have the recency bias. They've played good teams, they've beaten them,
Yeah.
and as much as I like them, they're a very likable team. A lot of young players, a lot of great players that would probably go in the first round this year, if the NFL draft happened. But I'm I think Bama just has the better resume
Yeah.
and the head to head. So if you're going to have any of these 4 teams that we listed on the bubble in, I'm definitely going to go with Bama.
I think that it's a shame and it's a travesty that South Carolina is probably going to miss the playoffs because the referees gave LSU the win over them. Because they would be, if they had 2 losses, there would be no conversation here. I think that they would be easily.
Absolutely.
If I were a voting, I feel like I would give the people what they want, and I would stick with we're in a new era. We're in a 12-team format. I think that they have all the momentum, and I would probably go with them. Like I said, you don't want to play them right now, but I think that the committee is going to go with Bama. I
Hmm.
think that's what's going to happen. Whether you like it or not, buckle up because that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And the committee already hinted at if you're out of the playoffs right now, like if you're 13 or below, you're like don't hold your breath. So that's where I think we're
Very
at.
sad.
Let's get into these conference championship matchups. Let's go with the big dog, no pun intended. First, UGA Texas Part 2. We get the rematch here. Um, Vegas has Texas as like a 2.5 point favorite opening this game. It's in Atlanta.
Very
So
true.
I think the question is here. We saw the Georgia Texas game last time was a Jalen Walker legacy game, and we haven't really seen him do what he did against them in other games. I mean, he's a good player. His Georgia defense shows flashes of greatness, but there are still very big problems with them.
I absolutely agree. As you might not like what I'm going to say here, but I honestly don't like using the previous Georgia Texas game as evidence or as a predictor of what this game is going to happen. A lot of weird stuff happened in that game.
Exactly what I was going to
Uh, Quinn Ewers played like crap. So did Carson Beck. He three interceptions, and they
say.
still
Three
somehow win that
interceptions.
game by 15 against one of the best defenses in the country. Very weird things happened. Um, if we want to go based on recent performance, I think the Vegas odds and the Vegas spread make a lot of sense. They're not giving too much credit to Texas, respecting the previous game. But I definitely would probably favor Texas in this game, even in Atlanta. Texas does travel. This is not going to be a full sea of
That's
black
fair.
and
Yeah.
red, but I definitely think Texas should be favored in this game.
I am going to stick with Georgia here. One, because I'm biased, but two, I actually have a legitimate argument for this. I don't think Texas has done anything since that game against Georgia, since they lost, to show me that anything's changed. Vanderbilt almost beat them.
I was so close to being right.
Yes, yes, you were. Yes, you were. They beat Arkansas by 10. And everybody was talking about how they handled business against A&M on the road. But what I saw in that game was I saw some big mistakes as well. Like I feel like they should have destroyed Texas A&M. But we saw a pick six. Granted, the Texas defense was lights out in that game. They did not
Hmm.
let an offensive point be scored. That is unreal, especially in that environment. But I mean, Quinn Ewers like played. He did what he needed to do to win. But that was the game where I was watching it. I was like, if they blow the lid off of A&M, I'm gonna be like, okay, like this could be ugly. But they haven't. And on the other side, what I was really worried about in the Georgia game, and I was shocked that we still won with it, was our offense. And if anything has clicked for Georgia in the past 3 to 4 weeks, it's been the offense. Carson Beck looks confident. Other than freaking Arian Smith dropping open passes, the offense is clicking. We got guys stepping up in the absence of ETN. We got guys coming back from injury. I'm going to stick with dogs in Atlanta here, man. Give me the underdog story. I like Carson Beck. He's got his swagger back. Let's do it.
You definitely bring up a good point of that Texas hasn't done a whole lot outside the Texas A&M game to change how we think their weaknesses and strengths are. They haven't really been challenged on either. Their Texas defense is still great. It's still going to be the best
Yes,
one of the best defenses in
of
the
course.
country. Even going into this game, Georgia's not gonna have free reign any at all.
No.
But I I think the game plan is still there. Quinn Ewers still has the same weaknesses. If the As we mentioned, one of the reasons that Vanderbilt played Texas so close, they can replicate a similar strategy. Georgia has the players to do it. Um, and Georgia can make this a game. Like, if this is going to be a tight, contested SEC championship, which I think a lot of us are expecting, I don't think anyone's expecting a blowout in either way. Uh, I think Georgia can do it. Plus, I hate doing this. Georgia technically has proven that they have the intangibles. That Georgia Tech game was insanely close.
Insane.
The Even the comeback against Alabama was crazy. They've played a lot of close games this year. I think there's slight edges in the non-stat related parts of this game. They have the slight coaching advantage, in my opinion. They have the slight intangible advantage for quarterbacks. Just small things here and there.
One thing to watch, and then I think we can move on. We've kind of don't want to beat a dead horse, but Georgia's struggled against the mobile QB. Do they get Arch more involved in this game?
If they got Arch in this game, it's a completely different ball game. I actually would say if Arch is ready, that he is the better quarterback to enter this game to win.
I agree. I mean, it's when you look at what Georgia struggled against, that's been it. But that's going to be a great game. We'll see. I think it'll be tight as well. I expect like a one score margin either way. I think that the Dogs have got this one. They don't got it, but I feel good about it. I think that people are writing them off. They're like, oh, it's a rematch. Texas is going to win. Like we're not doing that here. Going on to the other marquee matchup, one we didn't really expect to see, but then Ohio State fumbled. I mean, they
Go blue,
equivalently
baby.
they dropped the ball on the 1 yard line, I guess. And Penn State was all of a sudden like, me? I'm in here. Um, and believe it or not, ESPN win probability says that the Penn State Nittany Lions have a 53% chance to win this game.
Which is crazy
It is
considering Penn
insane.
State has had the same exact seasons for like the past 3 or 4
Yeah.
years, and they're somehow made the Big Ten championship.
Every year it's like, is this the year? And they start off hot and then they lose to Ohio State and or Michigan, and they lost to Ohio State, but here we are. I don't see a reason to go against Oregon here. The two games that Oregon's really had close was Boise State, who Boise State is good. I mean, Ashton Jeanty, 3 touchdowns, tried to win that game for that team. And then they stumbled against Wisconsin, but we've seen all the big teams stumble this year, and it just looks like such a complete team. Dylan Gabriel is nothing like insane at a QB, but he's great, very good. He has a lot of he has a great arm. He can move the ball with his legs. So I think he's exactly what you need. Solid game manager, and Dan Lanning, great coach. So yeah, I don't see why Oregon doesn't take this one.
This matchup, Penn State always struggles against teams that are,
Good.
I would say, equivalent or greater in talent level to them.
Yeah, yeah,
You can even see this with their NFL draft recruits.
yeah,
Oregon has, I think, by default, the best front seven in the country. Those defensive linemen and linebackers are killer against anybody.
yeah,
Penn State, Drew Aller has struggled with under pressure. I mean, which QB doesn't struggle under pressure? But because Penn State's played in a lot of comfortable games this year, to contrast this with Georgia, for example, Penn State's played in a lot of comfortable games, and against a team that has comparable talent on in the trenches alongside an offense that's, as you mentioned, is very good. It's extremely consistent and safe.
yeah.
They will pretty much consistently get at least a field goal on you every single drive, which is a lot of pressure to be under if you're a team like Penn State, who's, I mean, yeah, they've like probably one of the best tight ends in college football history, but you know, it's still a tight end.
The thing with Oregon that I think is most interesting is like in every game except for their opener and like the Wisconsin game, I think they're putting up at least 35 points. Like they are just consistently score. Like you said, it's just like methodical. They're gonna score. The question is, is your defense bend, don't break, and are you gonna be able to respond? And I don't really know if Penn State, like, it's hard to judge Penn State because like all we have is the previous years to go off on, and it seems like every time they're in a scenario like this, they choke. And the one piece of evidence we have from this season to look at, because they did not play a crazy hard schedule, is Ohio State, and they couldn't get it done the whole time they were out of the game. Pretty much, like it was a disaster. So yeah, Oregon, I think that they're getting in. They're having their undefeated season and conference championship.
I will say this is probably one of the better Penn State teams we've seen in the last couple of
Yeah,
years. I would say it's a little unfortunate for Penn State fans. Actually, no, screw Penn State fans.
yeah,
Screw them.
yeah. But up
Y'all
next,
getting destroyed this game. This game.
we have another conference championship where somebody stumbled and is not in it. And it's a shame that Hunter's not here, but he's probably too stressed out right now. SMU is playing Clemson. Syracuse made sure that Clemson gets a chance to stay alive despite having no ranked wins or having really any wins that are impressive at all to me. Um, but they get a chance to get a auto bid against SMU. SMU is 11-1, and I think that originally I was not totally sure on them, but I feel like they're a good team. Like I know they're a good team, and I feel like their record's pretty solid. And there was a lot of chatter. We were talking about this before the show that if they lose this game, are they out? And after doing a little soul searching, I don't think they are. I think that they have. If you look at their record, they've manhandled a lot of their conference, uh, regular conference play teams, which Miami did not do. And they've really asserted themselves as like we are a solid team. We can run the ball on you all day, and we'll run up the score. So I think they're in this game either way, and I think that I favor them against Clemson.
I think SMU. I actually think so. Their one big loss this season, losing against BYU,
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't
early in
know
the
this.
season too.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know about this, but one of the reasons why they lost to BYU is that there was a quarterback controversy with SMU. They didn't quite know who their quarterback was going to be, and that ended up becoming Kevin Jennings. And he's really good, especially
Yeah,
compared to Preston Stone. And I think if you play, I hate doing this as well. If you do a little bit of revisionism, if current BYU played current SMU, I think SMU would win. That obviously doesn't change the resume, but I think this SMU team is sneaky good just because a lot of people don't watch SMU games.
exactly. I think a lot of people have overlooked them because they're new. They're not as big of a market. I mean, especially being in Texas, you have Texas A&M. You even got guys like Baylor, so not as big, but they are good. They're 11-1. They deserve to be there. They've earned their spot. Um, I think that Clemson's going to have trouble with this, and I think that especially the way they play, if Clemson is not able to capitalize early, they're going to be in for it's going to be a long day, because they're going to grind the clock out, and they're a team that can run the ball. They have a competent quarterback. They like you said, they figured that early in the season, and they put together a system that works for them. So I think they have a chance to lay on the pain if they want. However, Dabo is a great coach, and Clemson has the foundation to win this game as well. They're 9-3. I know we joke a lot. I think that they are a solid program still. They're not gone anywhere. So I think it'll be a good matchup. I'm still thinking SMU wins this, and I think that they win it by at least a touchdown, if not more.
I think the player to watch in this game is probably Brashard Smith, the running back for SMU. He's super versatile, running and receiving threat. I don't want to compare him to Bijan Robinson, my boy, but
Yeah.
he's so flexible. He's a legitimate threat in either the passing game or the run game. And I actually don't think SMU is going to blow out Clemson, but I do think the momentum will be in SMU's favor throughout the game.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be closer score wise, but it's not going to be Clemson's going to get momentum or anything. I think it's just
Well,
be just out of reach.
yeah, and I feel similar to that. I think that SMU could. I don't know. We'll see. This is their first time in the championship game like this, so I don't know if the lights will be a little bright for them. But like I think it's interesting because Clemson on paper is really good. Like Klubnik's put together a very good season. I mean, he threw the game-ending pick against South Carolina, but he only has 5 picks on the season. He's got 29 touchdowns. Phil Maffa's a very competent running back. They've got threats at wide receiver. So we'll see what happens. But I think this will be a sneaky good matchup. And unfortunately, about the other ones, I don't know a ton about Arizona State and Iowa State, but we'll definitely be paying attention to that. The winner is in, and then they get the pleasure of going out in the first round, in my opinion. But those are the big ones that I'm excited about, and I know you're excited about them too.
Shout out to Tulane versus Navy. I think that's a sneaky good matchup that
Yes,
nobody's
it
going to
will be
watch.
good. It will be good. We'll watch, but from afar, maybe. Um, First year new conference teams making a splash in these conference championship games. We're already seeing the effects of realignment. Like we said, it's been a crazy season. But let's get into the Heisman. This should be short and sweet. Both know who we want to win it. Who do we want? Who do we think is going to win it?
So I know Vegas has had Travis Hunter as the great favorite for this trophy for 6 weeks at this point, which I think is a disgusting thing. I think this is a lot more of a toss up. If you want Travis Hunter to win, I think there's a great argument for it. It depends on what you value. Like how like MVP works every year. It depends
For
on what
sure.
you value. And in my opinion, Ashton Genty is the Heisman Trophy uh, winner of this year. He's put on a phenomenal season. 2,300 yards in a 12-game schedule. NFL players can't do that.
Crazy. Yeah,
I
I agree. I think that it's him. I mean, these are just unreal numbers. And then if you look at who he's played, I mean, the dude's getting at least a touchdown a night. And one of his best games of the year was against Oregon. Like we said, that was Oregon is the best team in the country and they lost by 3 points. Boise did, and the only reason they were in the game was because Ashton Jenny was like, "We're winning this game." So I think that I would vote for him any day. Travis Hunter is an amazing athlete, but just because a dude plays both sides of the ball does not mean he gets the Heisman. I mean, he is a very, 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 very good player, and Colorado's come a long way. But you just can't deny those stats for Genty. And I agree with you. Vegas says that this is over and that Travis is going to win it, but part of me still thinks that there are voters out there that feel the exact same way as we do.
It's all more traditional for Ashton
Yeah,
Jenny to win. Uh,
exactly, exactly.
what are your thoughts on the
Especially
fact that our two favorite picks are not quarterbacks?
yes, it's crazy. And I think another part is the fact that Ashton Jenny in the era of NIL has chosen to stay at his school. This dude could get a bag anywhere. And I mean, how can you not root for that? He's a stud. I hope they win tonight and get into the playoffs. I want to see them do well. So yeah, we're rooting for him. Going on, best quarterback of the season. I'll go first. Cam Ward. I know we talked a lot about Miami. Whatever you talk about with strength of schedule or anything, even in their losses, the dude balled out. He was just never the reason they lost. I mean, he passed for 1 million yards every game. He could run the ball when he needed to. I think that it's not even really close.
A lot of the criticism of Miami and whether or not they should be a playoff team is about the whole team itself. Nobody, absolutely nobody, questions Cam Ward. He
Yeah,
is, I think, definitively the best quarterback of the in the country, and he's just so good. Like I'd want him on my NFL team.
he's so good. And we saw flashes of this when he was at Washington State as well. And I remember seeing when he transferred, I was like, ooh, that's a good pickup for sure. So yeah, definitely him. Best offense of the season. I said Miami with an asterisk um, because of Cam Ward, but ultimately they dropped a couple games. So I don't know. I would still say like they put up phenomenal numbers on paper. So yes, I have to give it to them. But also is another controversial one. I think that Ole Miss and Jackson Dart also put up legendary numbers on paper. But the problem is they also choked when it mattered. So looking at this now, I have it written down. I'm going to stick with Miami, but because Ole Miss, I feel like choked just a little bit more.
I definitely think those are two really great offenses, but obviously with Miami, it's the Miami's offense is never the reason they lose a game. They have to
No.
score 50 on somebody to win by three.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
insane. Ole Miss, they're a coin flip offense in my opinion. If they hit those deep balls, they blow out anybody. South Carolina has one of the best defenses in the country, and they blew them to smithereens
On the
uh,
at South Carolina.
at South Carolina. But my pick for best offense of the season is Indiana. I love the versatility of this team. It's consistent. They can hit you in any way, deep, intermediate, short. They have good running backs, and their quarterback plays exactly what you need him to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like a game manager plus,
Mm-hmm.
occasionally putting in those passes that save a drive.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's good. They have had a magical season for sure. We'll see if they can do anything in the playoffs. Best defense of the season. I'm taking Ohio State. I know they have two losses, but I mean that loss to Michigan is embarrassing. But ultimately, they didn't give up a ton of points. I mean, we just saw their offense just completely just crap out on them for the first time all season. Really, I mean, they lost to Oregon, but they still put up 31. Um, so yeah, they've been reliable all season. I feel like in some pretty decent matchups. So they got two losses. Ryan Day can't beat freaking Michigan to save his life, but the numbers are there. They are a 100% a team that can still win the Natty, and they have the defense to do it.
You're definitely right. Or Ohio State's, I think, the number one scoring defense in the country. They they will hold you down, and as long as the offense isn't screwed up, they're gonna destroy you. But
Yeah,
my pick for the best defense in the country, I mentioned it earlier, is Oregon. I think those that combination of the insane defensive line and linebackers combined with Dan Lanning's coaching, this defense is gonna kill you. You have to. They have and they have good corners too. They're not as outstanding as their front seven, but no offensive line in the country I think can hold up
yeah,
to this pass rush. Um, like Texas, Georgia has some of the best offensive lines. I'd be worried about them.
yeah. No, they put together something big there. I mean, they did. Dan Lanning's probably one of the best coaching hires we've had in a while. They're definitely happy up there in Eugene. team that still doesn't have a natty. So we'll see if that changes this year.
Mm, could
Surprise program
change.
of the year. I put Indiana, obviously. We don't even really need to spend much time on this. Just, dude, Kurt Signetti, go home, regardless of what happens in the playoffs, and count your millions, man. You earned it. A team that has never had a 10-win season, and technically, I mean, they have an 11-win season, so,
Do you
you know,
think they can sustain this next year?
huh?
Do you think they can sustain this next year, or is this a one-time
I don't
thing?
know. We'll see. I mean, I don't know enough about the eligibility of the guys who really made this happen, but I mean, he put together something big there in a team that is one of the worst programs ever. Just go if you have not done this, go on the Wikipedia page for Indiana football, and you're gonna have to pick your jaw off the floor. It's insane how bad this team is. So he's put together something magical there. What a season!
My surprise program of the season has got to be South Carolina. A team of true freshmen, are just so good. It's just a heartwarming story seeing these
Yep.
young players. Lenora Sellers, I think he's somehow underrated, even though he's been getting a lot of fanfare, even from his own coach saying he's the Heisman, uh, which I don't know if
Got
I agree with
legs.
that. But I love South Carolina. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be. I
Yeah.
know when it comes to young teams, they have a wide range of outcomes, but this they hit like the almost the maximum. And I think we were talking about this before the show. If they don't have that controversial end to the LSU game, I think
Yep.
this team is a definitive in to
Yep.
the playoffs.
Oh, for sure. Not even a question. So
But
thank you, referees, for preserving precious Brian Kelly's record. What a tool, man. Sorry to any LSU fans watching. All right. Last major point, or one or two more. Biggest disappointment of the season, without question, FSU. Good God. That was like watching a train crash. And it was like the first train, boom. And then the next car goes off the tracks. And then the next car. And before we knew it, we're like, this is a championship team, too. Can this team beat Charleston Southern? And they rushed the field when they did it. I mean, holy cow. They
I'm
paid for DJ.
I'm
They
I'm not
paid
gonna
money
make
for him.
fun of fans for rushing a field. It's an emotional thing. They've had a bad season, and them rushing field is kind of whatever.
They've had
But
one of the worst seasons in
but
history.
but it is so crazy that they got so inflated. Like their egos were out of this world because they felt they were snubbed for being out of last year's college football playoff. And they lost all those players. They lost all the mercenaries. And now they come into this season thinking, oh, we're going to repeat. We're going to make it to the college football playoff, especially now that it's 12 teams. No, you're not even close. You're one of the worst teams in your conference, if not the worst.
And you know when I knew it was going to go wrong is when they made those stupid conference championship rings that said 13 and 0 unconquered. It's like you guys got dog walked because what the committee did last season, I'm getting all hyped up now. The committee knew what they were
Go
doing.
off.
They had to put Alabama in and they knew that they could take Georgia who lost one game by 3 points and they sent us out there as their hired gun. They're like, "Go out there and silence them, kill them." We were Anakin to the Emperor. They told him, go out there, kill him now, Anakin. And that's what Georgia did. And we broke them. That team is broken. And we learned that if you hire a football team, it is not sustainable. So that is the biggest disappointment. Let me take a breather. You tell me who you picked as well.
So I think this has gone this narrative has gone completely undercover all season because it started off so poorly already. But Michigan, the defending champion, is so bad. They don't have an offense. They don't have quarterbacks. You have three quarterbacks on this roster. You are a premier football program. How many millions of dollars go into your NIL pot every single year? And you don't have three quarterbacks.
But they beat Ohio State.
But they beat Ohio State. You know what? You know what? Fair enough. That's a success.
They were like falling off the cliff, but grabbed him by the foot, pulled him down with them.
I honestly think you could have a 10-year career as a Michigan head coach if you beat Ohio State every year, regardless of what your record is.
Yeah.
Which Ryan Day, we'll see how that goes for them. Future offensive coordinator in the NFL, Ryan Day.
Exactly. Last question, real quick. We don't need to go into it too deep. Are these the best 12 teams in the country? I think almost, but not 100%, because I think you're going to leave teams out like South Carolina. I think we're going to get close. but I don't think that someone like a Big 12 champ is. It's not. There's going to be some problems, but we knew this would happen. We knew this would happen. Nobody's going to be happy all the time. So my answer is the best 12 teams in the country? No, but we're close.
I this might be slightly controversial. I think this is wildly off. Like I understand that to get into the playoffs, it's a different grading scheme. It's not the actual 12 best teams in the country. It's based on resumes and based on win-loss record, which talk about that grading all you want, but
Mhm.
uh I think this is wildly off. I don't know if I have South Carolina as one of the best 12 teams in the country. Um, but I do think a lot of teams are overvalued just because of how the football playoff system works. I don't think Boise State is a top 12 team in the country. I think
I
Ashton
well,
Genty is one of one.
all right, that's insane.
I don't
They absolutely are. They
I
only
don't think
beat number
so.
one. They haven't lost to anybody else.
I don't think they're a top 12 team in the nation, although Ashton Genty probably is the best player in college football. Um, I do think a lot of teams are undervalued that should be much higher in the ranking, but that's just up to personal preference.
Well, we will see in just a few hours who makes it in. It is exciting to be able to experience this 12 team for the first time. Let us know below what you think. Again, sorry for the absence. There's got a lot going on we're working on, but we came back when it mattered. We'll definitely try to do an update before the playoffs, maybe throughout the playoffs. We'll see. So drop a comment below if you like what you saw. If you think we're wrong, if you think Grant's take on Boise State is the dumbest one you heard all week.
I think Arizona State's better than Boise State, and neither of them should be in the playoffs.
On that note, we'll end. Thank you, everyone.